Joey and myself, we are social distancing, almost across the country.
Yeah.
But this is as good as it gets. But yeah, as you can tell, sorry guys, bear with me, please. This -20 weather, it's getting to my throat a little bit, as you can hear, and Joey's getting over the cold himself. So other than that, how have you been, man?
Doing all right. Happy to say that I have not been in -20-degree weather, although it is pretty cold here where I am, but it's not that cold. So enjoying not being on Hoth, as
Yeah,
I think I saw you put it somewhere on social media.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but yeah. I'm here. I'm excited to be back. Thanks for having me back. And
Hmm.
excited to talk Star Wars, especially in this little bit of a lull that we have in between projects. I I'm glad that they take these breaks, but it really leaves me wanting more. So happy to be here to talk about more.
And like you said, this is always the best time, I feel like, to talk with others, just simply because there's nothing to really talk about. So
Yeah,
we get an open range, an open topic to talk about certain things. But yes, I agree. Wouldn't want to have anyone else here for the
appreciate that.
main topic today. So, well, if we want to get into show and tell, I'm going to go ahead and start it this time
Yeah.
because I have something cool slash freaky slash weird slash awesome. So shout out to my boy Colson. He gifted me this Dwayne the Child Johnson 3D print.
Oh my goodness. That is all the things that you used to describe it.
Yeah. So this is
Haunting.
yeah, it's very creepy, but it's really awesome. So yeah,
Hmm.
this is Grogu with Dwayne Rock Johnson's face on it.
Hmm.
And as you can see here, they could be cousins.
Yeah.
Um, but
Boy,
yeah,
I
and
hope
I'm
that's not what he looks like when he gets older. No
that'd
offense,
be
Dwayne.
nuts. I was gonna say I'm not the biggest The Rock fan, but I mean this is awesome. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So thanks, Colson. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh man, now I'm looking around my desk to see if I have anything weird. I don't, and I brought out something super not weird, but also pretty awesome. So I think last time I was on, I showed off a helmet that my partner's brother 3D printed me. That was a wearable temple guard helmet. And this time I have another thing that he printed for me, which is a wearable phase 2 clone trooper helmet. This
Oh
one's raw.
wow.
This one it's fresh, not really fresh off the 3D printer, but it's pretty raw. I haven't sanded it down or filled any of the lines in or anything. But this is one part of the whole suit that
Oh, so
he
we're doing a whole
3D
thing.
printed me. Yes. It took like 300 hours or something to print it all. So I'm super stoked
Wow.
about this. I have to work on like picking out colors and like making it my own. And it's going to take, I don't know, 10 years to sand it all down and paint it and everything. But I'm super excited about that. It was kind of like a dream come true gift. I've always wanted wearable phase 2 armor. So now I have it, and it's all in a box over to my side that I've put out of camera frame, thankfully. But
Well, so like what colors are you looking for to complete it?
yeah, good question. I just always kind of default to Captain Rex. But I really want to make it my own. I really like my favorite colors most of the time is yellow, and I really like blue. So maybe something in there, yellow, blue, kind of like a Hauser. Maybe something
Oh
between
yeah.
like uh um the 332nd and Hauser and Captain Rex. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to try to be better about that extra like value added content for Krypton to Alderaan. And so hopefully when I start, I will be posting updates about and maybe some time lapses about it all going on.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like helmets are very underrated for a collection. Simply, I mean, you can put it on. That's what the purpose is.
Yep.
I mean, they always look good. Like I got my Boba Fett re-armored helmet. I just
Yeah.
absolutely, it looks great.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love
whether you,
helmets. Helmets and lightsabers are my two. The same person who 3D printed me these helmets is also 3D printed me a couple of lightsabers. They're in
oh
pieces. It's
wow,
again like something I have to kind of like process post 3D printing and paint and everything. So I also have Grogu's, not Grogu, Gunji's lightsaber and a
Oh,
Temple Guard
nice.
lightsaber. And I think one set of Ahsoka's lightsabers. They're also in a box off to my side. I really don't remember what's in there, but so I have a series. I just have a ton of like raw 3D printed projects that I have to work on, and I've also 3D printed this little Marchion Row,
Oh, nice.
or Marchion Row, however you want to say it, helmet,
Heck
which
yeah.
goes with my. I assume at some point we're gonna talk some High Republic stuff here today. This I hang this blanket off the back of my chair because it reminds me of Marchion Ro's cape in some of the comics. So big fan of that as well.
Hell yeah. See, I haven't really dived too much into the to the comic realm, but I think there's a new edition of the Vader comics, correct? That just came out.
Oh, I did. I'm not sure. I have not kept up with stuff like that, I guess. Like a
Because
new series of comics or a new edition of like older comics?
I believe it's a new edition because this one, I think Kylo Ren is like the main lead, and
Mm.
this was like the Vader killed Watto finally thing that came out, and it was Kylo Ren going to Tatooine, and he finds this out
Oh,
firsthand.
interesting.
So
Yeah,
I
I got
mean,
to get back into the comics. I've really just been on for the past several years, I've been almost exclusively on a High Republic kick. So I haven't really gone into maybe the more I don't want to call it mainstream, but more original trilogy era outside a Skywalker saga era. How's that? Comics
yeah,
or books or anything.
nice, and it's always good to get out too of the Skywalker realm,
Yeah,
just
I
because
agree.
it's it's in a way it's very refreshing because if it doesn't consist of Anakin Skywalker or Luke Skywalker, and mainly you know original trilogy Luke mixed in with the Legends Luke from older books, it's kind of like a gray area because
Right.
if it's not that, it's not good to some. So um
Yeah, that's part of it. I think like I don't know. I think it's all good and I might not like some of it, but I really do think a lot of it's good and I have a lot of Star Wars comics back here on my shelf. I highlight my High Republic special editions because I love that era of Star Wars, but um yeah, I don't know. I don't have very many Legends stuff back there, but I have a ton of Vader comics because those comics, the Charles Soule comics, uh, especially, were just incredible. So, yeah, span all of the. Oh, you know what? All of Star Wars is good. All the
yeah,
history, all of it. Skywalker saga and that. That's why we're here today.
exactly, because Star Wars is awesome.
Yes.
Well, what's your favorite live action Star Wars series? I know
Ooh,
last
getting
time we
right
talked a
into it.
little. Yeah, I know last time we talked a little bit of film, but let's leave the 11 films to the side. Let's talk live action Disney Plus Star Wars series.
Yeah, this is great because this is also a little bit outside of my personal niche, I think, a little bit, because I mean we also just talked about this on Krypton to Alderaan, which is like a fun thing to now revisit with you and get other perspectives. But I have just become so in love with animated Star Wars, and I hold animated Star Wars as very personal to me and like my Star Wars. Live action has had so many ups and downs for me, and I think it gets criticized a lot more heavily because a lot more people are watching it. It doesn't
Right.
necessarily have the stigma that animation does still for some reason. But my answer is tricky because I think Skeleton Crew was the most animated live action Star Wars that we have seen. Like
It's
from
a good
my
way to put it.
perspective, it's the closest to an animated, like just vibes, story, the kids, the emotional storytelling, the like found family stuff. That all hits so close to like Bad Batch season 3 and some of the and just feelings that I feel when I watch animated Star Wars. But I think I then judge that based on animated Star Wars, so it's it's like maybe hypocritically not my favorite. And I always make this run long because I'm always afraid to say what my favorite live action Star Wars show is,
Mhm,
because
mhm.
now you'll get bad comments. But I really think my favorite live action show is The Acolyte. I really, really think, like, recency bias, yes, is a thing. Maybe not for so many people with The Acolyte, but The Acolyte hit on a lot of stuff that makes Star Wars special to me, which is always like how we on Krypton to Alderaan talk about judging stuff. And it was also new. It tried a lot of new stuff. It took a lot of chances. It,
Mhm.
I think, had a great villain. It had great aesthetics. It was just it it took a lot of risks, and I really loved the characters, and I just loved that era, and it's set in the High Republic, which I also like. That's already like a higher, the bar is already higher for me, or the baseline. I have to pick The Acolyte. And I am happy about that. I just know that I'm cringing because I know what happened during The Acolyte, especially to, like, I mean, especially to the people who made and starred in The Acolyte, but then also the content creators who dared to also like it and express that on the internet. So yeah, that's my spiel about that. But I think it's The Acolyte. What? So I think I have a guess, but what would your favorite live action Star Wars, and has it changed? I'm gonna add, like what's your favorite right now, and also like how has it changed? I think, or what made it your favorite?
Seeing episode 1, season 2, The Mandalorian, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay, this fresh start." I love the character Cobb Vanth.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in between, we see Ahsoka in live action for the first time. We get more story. I'm a huge Bill Burr fan. Seeing Bill
Mm.
Burr in an episode and then seeing him, in later episodes, and then capping off with original trilogy Luke, man, with the green lightsaber, in
Yeah.
his prime, quote unquote. Man, that was just a great way to end that season. But there hasn't been anything that has come out to where I'm like, this, I can't knock this season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, and personally, I actually went through when the Clone Wars came out. I didn't like Ahsoka. I always say this on the
Mm-hmm.
channel. But now Ahsoka easily a top 10 character for me. Took me
Yep.
a while. I just didn't like how Anakin wasn't a master in Revenge of the Sith, but had Ahsoka this whole time. I
Yeah.
feel like that's a fair thing, but it's also what I think. It's my opinion. Um, but I mean, yeah, I just really think Mando season 2 is right there. I absolutely loved the Book of Boba Fett. And sometimes I get kind of raised eyebrows at that. Um, but I think just because Boba Fett is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars, it hits different for me.
Mm-hmm.
Were there things that needed to be different? 100%. Um, the the mod gang, not that big of a deal to me. I thought it was
Yeah.
random
Agreed.
and there, can't take it out. It happened.
Yeah.
Um, but they're not the bigger part of the story. They're
Right.
just trickled in there. But you have to like and you have to appreciate the risks that these new writers and creators are doing with Disney Star Wars because people act like George Lucas wasn't getting hounded for
Yeah.
episode 1 of Phantom Menace. If
Oh my
like
goodness. Yeah.
if we really want to sit and talk, imagine if Darth Maul wasn't in episode 1. How many people would like the Phantom Menace?
Right.
It's that's just me though, and that's a huge what if. But at the same time, I just don't think it would be necessarily the same. Um, but then again, I mean, I'm just not one to knock somebody over what they think. Um, because like you said, even off screen, whatever Star Wars resonates to you, that's your Star Wars, and that's
Yep.
okay. That's why there's 40 million different series and movies and episodes because
Yeah.
you want to reach a wide audience. That's the whole
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. We have to be okay with Star Wars growing beyond what it was. What's that line from The Last Jedi? Like, we are what they grow beyond.
Mm,
Star Wars there is truly getting to be something for everyone in the Star Wars galaxy. And we have to be okay with it going outside of the box that we put it in with the original trilogy and the prequels. And sometimes it's going to hit and sometimes it's going to miss. Well, and the things that I think miss, someone else is going to think is great. And that's the
Yeah.
beauty of all of this. It's just like, it's not objective. It's, we're all critiquing art. It's all art, and we are all our criticisms all come from our own lived experiences, so we're all going to see it differently. And that's what, and because it's getting to be more and more, we have like more and more opportunities for it to be something for everyone. And you're
Yeah.
right, like that was the biggest thing during, it's been the biggest thing during like the Disney Star Wars era, which people hate on. And like I said, I love animated Star Wars. Without
Mhm.
Disney, we would have no animated Star Wars. And
Right.
animated Star Wars is my favorite slash the best Star Wars. So I put that aside. And it's also, yeah, like George Lucas, there's some kind of disconnect here where people are forgetting that the amount of trash that George Lucas got thrown at him for the prequels. After The Phantom Menace came out, like people hated it so much they made a documentary. Maybe we talked about this last time I was on your show. But right, like the
Oh
People
yeah.
versus George Lucas came out because everyone hated The Phantom Menace. And now it's like, 25 years later, and we love it. And I love it a
Right.
lot more now than I did back then because of animated Star Wars. You were talking about Ahsoka now being your top 10, and you were mad that Anakin couldn't be a master but had an apprentice. And like they
Mhm.
kind of addressed that in the Clone Wars, but also 7 seasons of the Clone Wars fills in a lot of the gaps in the prequels that makes me appreciate the prequels a lot more. So not only are we getting more stuff for everyone, but we're getting stuff that takes us back and uplifts the stuff, enhances the content that was already there. So yeah, man, there's definitely going to be stuff that misses for me, but I have like, especially with doing this podcast and being on podcasts like yours and talking to so many different people about Star Wars, it's just we just can't say definitively, oh, this show sucks or this show was bad. Like Royce and I didn't really like the Book of Boba Fett all that much, but I
Mm.
appreciate that a bunch of other people did. And I love that the stuff that I don't love, someone else will love, because that means there's a purpose and someone found, beauty and love for the thing that I didn't. So it means something to someone, which is what is important. There's so much to be said about how to think about and watch Star Wars, and then how to communicate about Star Wars outside of just being like, dude, I thought the Acolyte was dope when Kamir floated down from the sky. That's like one of my favorite. Like I want to also do those things. I want to be like, remember that? That was cool. And then also be like, hey, Star Wars can be for everyone if we just let it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. I love that you use the word enhance because that's the whole reason these little series, Rebels,
Yeah.
Clone Wars, Tales of the Blank, we're getting all of
Hmm.
those. Those all are supposed to be made to enhance the films
Right.
and other stories and lore. And what I'm really ready for is those to start hitting for the Heir to the Empire era, kind of like we're
Hmm.
in right now in the Mandoverse, leading into the sequels. Could you
Hmm.
imagine if we get more of those to enhance the character of Kylo Ren, to enhance the
Yeah.
character of Rey, to enhance the upbringing of Finn and why he wasn't a Jedi in the sequel trilogy? Maybe it
Right.
just wasn't his time yet. That's what I love about these animated series too, as well. I know you said you kind of put it off to the side in its own area, but I feel like because it has to, because it starts getting kind of sticky in a sense to where you start talking about the greatness here, but then you're starting to not talk about the main picture, which is
Right.
very fair.
Yeah, I think also we we tend to kind of segregate everything, whereas it's all one big story. I think that's the best thing about Ahsoka transitioning from animation to live action is that it
Yes.
shows us, literally shows us that this is one story. It's not Clone Wars and Rebels and Tales and then A New Hope, Empire and Return of the Jedi. It's literally it's all the same story with all the same, like, these characters also existed in the live action shows. They were just, out somewhere else. And so it's just all one cohesive story. And that's another beautiful thing about these animated shows and the other things like you're talking about, Heir to the Empire stuff, filling in these gaps. And with what the Bad Batch did, Bad Batch is my favorite of the animated shows. Season 3 is a
It's really good.
masterpiece,
Goddamn.
and season 3 filled in those gaps. And what we talked about a lot on Krypton to Alderaan was making the effort to make sure that that line by Poe in Rise gets unmemed, right? Somehow Palpatine returned. We're starting to fill in the somehow with both the Bad Batch season 3 and Mando. And so we can make that unmemeable. We can stop making those. Yes, it was kind of a silly line to have in there, but we're filling that in, and I'm completely expecting this other content to uplift the sequels for me, like the Clone Wars uplifted the prequels for me. And it's
Yeah.
all, I mean, and it's all just because it's all the same. It's just all the same story. It doesn't matter if it's animation or live action. It's just all there. And like I said, I think like Ahsoka really kind of solidified that frame mindset for me.
Yeah. No, I
I
get
will
that.
say that I did say I had a few Legends books back there, and I have the Heir to the Empire trilogy. Was that a trilogy? Whatever
Yeah, I
it
believe
was,
so.
those the Zahn books. But I really, this is again like a personal Star Wars preference. I really prefer the in canon Zahn Thrawn books. They're so good, and the Ascendancy trilogy is so. Have you read any of those?
I'm a non-book reader, but I've told
Yeah,
many of my Star Wars friends that I need to start. I do have Dark Disciples sitting right here. I'm a huge Quinlan Voss guy, so I think I just need to find my interest of those outer sources and just
yeah.
get to it.
The new Thrawn books are really good. I think they're better than I think like Heir to the Empire kind of like Timothy Zahn wrote both, right? He wrote Heir to the Empire in the 90s and he wrote the new Thrawn stuff in the 2000s. So he like, I'm not going to say he practiced with Heir to the Empire, but he certainly feels like he perfected the character in these new books. And
Okay.
Thrawn is much more of he's not a villain. He's like a kind of a good guy in the new books, and he just wants to like protect his people, and that's kind of like why he joins the Empire. So I'm really hoping for some of that to come out in this like uh Imperial Remnant story stuff that we're getting. Like I hope we see at least just a little bit of Thrawn
Yeah.
not being like completely long live the Empire kind of evil dude. And Filoni, I think, talked with Timothy Zahn when they were like getting ready to do Thrawn in Ahsoka. So hopefully there's a little nugget of this in there because I really like these books have really sold me on Thrawn not being a bad guy. So I just need at least just a little bit of it. Just
That would be
just a little bit.
that would be really interesting because I mean, I've even told people too, like Thrawn is doing it for his people. I have
Yeah,
I can read
exactly.
online and understand that
Yeah.
fact. Um but taking the shortcut, but I I don't I don't see where Thrawn is actually the big bad now that I've seen Ahsoka 3 times through now.
Mm,
It's there's something about his demeanor maybe or in knowing Thrawn from Rebels, it's almost like it's still the same character, which is great because Ahsoka in a way kind of seems like Rebels season, five and a
Yeah,
half, and
sure.
that's like always tossed around, which I buy that because I feel that way. Um, but I feel like maybe there's a bigger bad. And
Yeah.
also too with Mando season 3 when the Shadow Council is talking about Thrawn making his return, maybe they're just expecting him to be this really bad, next to Palpatine kind of guy.
Right.
And that's not what it is. Hence here comes the First Order. They take it and shift it their own way. That's kind of what I think. I don't maybe maybe the Abeloth thing comes out in Ahsoka season 2. I think it's a cool thing to talk about, but
Mhm.
who knows if that's going to happen?
Yeah.
So,
I would be surprised. I would be surprised in two things. I would be surprised if the Abeloth thing didn't happen, and I would be surprised if it was not just a contained story to Ahsoka. Like
mm,
whether she breaks free of her prison on Peridia and they have to stop her from reaching like the, whatever, the real galaxy, real
yeah, the,
space,
the main.
whatever. I don't see it. I would be very surprised if it became like an in-galaxy villain. But I'm much more excited to see that. And I think I just read a rumor or something somewhere that said like Aquafina was being considered for Abeloth. I don't know if that was true. It popped up as a rumor somewhere.
Hmm, interesting.
But either way, like that's the kind of stuff that's like the Star Wars that I love. That's why I love the Acolyte, that mystical, magical side of stuff. Like, obviously, I love Andor. I think Andor, though, is like the least George Lucas Star Wars of any Star Wars. It's like people were hating on the Acolyte for like not being George Lucas's vision. It's like Andor is the farthest thing away from that in my mind. Uh, but
That's
everyone
a
loved it, and it was incredible. It's an incredible political thriller, and it's heartfelt, and it's amazing, and the writing's amazing, and the speeches are amazing, and the acting is amazing. It's all amazing. Um, but the Acolyte with the mystical magical stuff, Rebels with the mystical magical stuff later on, and the Clone Wars, the Mortis God stuff, all of those things are my jam. That's what I love in Star Wars. So I'm super excited to see that in Ahsoka season 2.
yeah,
Regardless of where it like impacts the, you know, regular Star Wars galaxy.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know who the big bad like could be besides Thrawn in this like Imperial Remnant Mandoverse movie slash ongoing series stuff that we're getting. Except maybe those aliens from the Grisk. So
oh yeah,
if maybe you've read about that online as well if you're reading about Thrawn, but there's like an alien threat in Chiss space that he Thrawn had to fight against. And if that's a threat to the galaxy, then that would be cool. We had like the Uzong Vong in Legends, which is kind of the same thing. But that would be a fun I think that would be a fun way for them to go that would kind of not be entirely expected, because I think we're all considering that Thrawn is just going to like he shows up at Dathomir with the
the little
at the end of
catacombs.
Ahsoka, and and whatever is going to happen there. Um but it would be cool for them to kind of like throw something new, take some risk, like they did with the Acolyte. Like as much as I love Skeleton Crew, it was safe. There wasn't much risk
Yeah,
taken. It was kind of, it was very Star Warsy, and it was classic Star Wars. But let's take some more risks, I think.
yeah, I love the risk taking because if some people don't end up not liking the content that they're pushing out, hey, it's it's all about the idea.
Yeah.
And that's what gives us these critical takes to think about.
Hmm.
For instance, like I have friends too that really love the Acolyte. I have friends that don't like the Acolyte. I have friends that like the first 2 episodes, the lightsaber fight, and that's it. Um, I have friends who like the Plagueis showing up, but it's like, okay, yeah, 3 seconds is awesome. But it's just so clear that's what it's setting up for.
Yeah,
Um,
which would be
but
amazing to see.
yes, and we'll get to that too, guys.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just so weird, that's the whole point about taking risks, is it all comes back. You are able to, like I always love the saying, you take your failures and your success and you go from there,
Mhm.
because both are, just as greatly achievable. Now you know what to do next. I
Right.
absolutely love that. So take the risks, Disney. I feel like they are doing it. Um,
Yep.
I feel like a lot of people too think that this Ray trilogy that's in the works is a huge risk take, but I don't think it is. I think this is going to be like possibly the next big thing,
Yeah.
because outside of whatever Kathleen Kennedy is rumored to say, like the Force is female, Ray's the next thing.
Mm.
Give it to me. Let's see what it
Yeah,
is. Um,
absolutely.
but I'm a firm believer that I think Grogu is in the story and was introduced in The Mandalorian simply because this is the longevity of Star Wars, another 100 years.
900 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I love that aspect, and I think that's another risk that they're taking. And plus, you go to Walmart, you're going to see Baby Yoda. You go to Dollar General, you're going to see Baby Yoda. You
Yep.
go to the movie theaters next year in May, you see Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
You look at my arm right here, I got Baby Yoda. It's
Yeah.
it's everywhere, so absolutely love the risk taking, but
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, Yoda says the greatest teacher failure is, right? Even if you don't like what they make, even if you consider what they make to be a failure, it's they're learning what to do next. And
right.
that kind of is sort of a double-edged sword, because we don't get the Acolyte renewed for a season 2. I think for obvious like people hated on it pretty heavily and made that very clear. And so in my opinion, Disney like caved into all of that and it did not renew it slash has not yet renewed it. You got to give things a chance to build on the failure if you think it's a failure. I don't think it's a failure. Other people think it's failure, but we both should want, in my mind, we both should want the same thing. Like,
Yeah,
if you think $180 million is too much to spend, well, let them get a season 2 and show what they can do without $180 million, or show what they can do with all the feedback that they have gotten from everyone, people who loved it and people who didn't, and see what can come next. Build on that failure. Like you're saying, like the road to failure and success, like we still have to get there to go to what can happen next. So
exactly.
it's a shame when stuff like that happens and it just kind of like fizzles out or dies away without having the chance to build on the failure that was there. Like Ray's trilogy is going to build on what many people consider to be the failure of the sequel trilogy. I like the sequel trilogy. I like the sequel trilogy a lot more the more I watch it. People who
Yeah,
hated the prequels, the more we've watched it over time, the more we've liked it. That stuff just happens with time and with a little bit more context and with like people changing, people's like life perspectives changing. So yeah, I think having the opportunity to build on those failures is important. Otherwise, they were just failures and
yeah,
nothing comes from them, which no one should want.
yeah, yeah, man. We all live to grow.
Yeah.
It's just like you said with the prequels. I had friends in elementary school that hated Star Wars. Like, how do you hate Star Wars?
Right.
Um, but it's over time, I used to take all the DVDs and fast forward to each chapter where the lightsaber fight was. I'd skip all the political things. I would,
Yeah.
skip Anakin talking to Padme in their living room because I don't care. I want to see
Yep.
the fights. Um, but that's the beauty of it, is getting older, rewatching and being like, oh my God, Anakin low key sucks, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but he's so great. He's so
Yeah.
great. But that's I have an older friend who grew up in the 80s and 90s, and he loves the original trilogy. He doesn't really care for the prequels. His biggest gripe with the prequels is Yoda wielding a lightsaber. Like, he hates
Mm.
that. Um, so all right, I buy that.
Sure.
You know, that's your Star Wars, and
Yeah.
that's what you know, that's what you grew up with. Now, it would be weird if I was just like, dude, come on. You can't tell him that, you know? We can joke around about it, but some people get a little too serious
Mhm.
um with defending Star Wars. And then there's also this level of Star Wars fandom. You know, like
Yeah.
if you like it all, you're up here, but if you only like a couple things, you're right here. I don't
Right.
ever look at it that way.
No.
It's that's the whole point is it's made for different people and that's
100%.
fine. But you know what's even cooler is when you can find something in all of Star Wars and find something that you like about it.
Yep.
Like if you don't like the Acolyte, that's fine. But can you tell me some things that you do like? That's
Right.
cool. Now we can have a conversation.
Right.
Um Rebels is not my favorite per se, but I absolutely love seeing Leia's episodes,
Mm.
Lando's episodes. I love seeing, you know, Ezra build his new lightsaber. Like I love all of those things.
Yep.
And Kanan Jarrus, of course, making his sacrifice. How could I not mention that?
Yep.
It's awesome, you know, like I can still pull things and I'm still a fan of Rebels, but it's
Mhm.
just not my favorite. But I'm not gonna sit and make videos on why I hate it so much
Right.
because that's
Right.
just boring and sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. No, I 100% agree. And there is stuff to like to pull out of all of it. Like, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the Book of Boba Fett, but the Tusken Raider stuff and when he's with them and like
Oh, it's so cool.
they take him in and all that stuff is just solid gold. And Grogu in the Rancor is great. You know, there's
Oh,
lots
yeah.
of good stuff in there. There's just, yeah, there's just some stuff that doesn't really hit for me. It's not even like that I don't like it. It's just obviously the way I have lived my life and the things that have happened to me and the experiences that I've had have made it so that certain things don't hit for me. Like I'm a certain type of fan because of who I am, and so certain things don't hit for me. It's not that's all it is. And that's I just wish that a lot more of us could see things that way so we don't go and try to tell people this is bad objectively and I don't like it so no one should like it, right?
Yeah.
That's where it does get boring and sad, to use your
Yeah.
words.
To the least too, because it's like, "Nah, man. Let's like, you don't wanna always talk about bad things. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about good things." Maybe I'm too overly positive. Some, other creators call me the positive one, and it's like, I just like it, man. I just like
Yeah.
it. You
I
know,
think we
that's
should talk more about the positives, man. Like let's I I think that's a great way to go. Like we're going to critique it. Like I said, we're going to critique it. We're going to come on here and say this is what hey, this didn't hit or this did hit and I'm excited and I love animated Star Wars and so we just have to like and we have to stay positive and you're going to be so much more excited talking about what you liked and so it's going to be more engaging and maybe you'll change some minds maybe people will listen and hear your perspective on like why you're excited about a thing and they'll go back and watch it with new eyes. That's what we can hope for. That's like the main thing I think we can hope for. So just keep being the positive one. That's what I
yeah,
say.
just stay in the light, you know? You don't
Yeah,
wanna stay in
yeah.
the dark.
Nope.
Even Star Wars tries telling you that,
Right.
and you gotta if you're a fan, you understand, you get it.
Yeah.
Um, but, I mean, dropping a bomb, if you were to create and, you know, take off where Leslie Headland dropped it, you pick up the Acolyte, you're going for season 2. What is the main premise? Kind of
Mm.
give us like a trailer, you know, we get like a minute, 40 seconds to 2 minutes of a trailer. What is your trailer showing? What is the overall goal for season 2 of the Acolyte?
Great question. I think season 2 of The Acolyte, I think a lot more context would be great. Especially Kamir's backstory and Plagueis and all of that kind of behind the scenes. I think I would really love to see man, I've thought about this so much over the past couple of months, and I feel like I've gone back and forth so much, and I'm, like, arguing with myself even now in my head, but the way it ended, so Vernestra has May and her memories, you know, Camille messed with her memory. There's something in here where I think like a long-term redemption story could be really great, and there's nothing more classic Star Wars than that. And I really think I'm on board mostly for that because of Crosshair in the Bad Batch. Like
Oh yeah.
Crosshair's the first character that the end of season 1, I was like, I don't want this character to have a redemption arc. He's a bad guy. Let's just move on and he'll be the bad guy. And season 2 also started out that way. He's like trying to kill them, and I'm like, no
Yeah.
redemption. And then by the time we get to the end of season 3, I'm like, this is the greatest story that's ever been told in the history of of redemption arcs. So
Man.
that's like got me jonesing for more of that Star Wars, and also like it subvert my expectations in that way. Like, let's take this character which seems irredeemable and do something with them, like show them to have a heart. And we saw Camille really just like develop this connection or take advantage of this connection with oh no, what was her name? May
It would
and
be,
Osha.
well, May then Osha, yeah.
I think Camille like really sort of honing in on this relationship with Osha and literally like seducing her to the dark side, of like a literal seduction to the dark side. I think there's such a great connection there that is also classic, like Star Wars love story, maybe less classic, maybe more like prequel trilogy
Yeah.
love story kind of thing. But there's also something kind of like Luke Mara Jade in here where someone, the, she turns the lightsaber red at the end and they go off together and we see Plagueis. But if they can get to a point where we see Camille's backstory and how Plagueis like took him in and raised him, we see what Vernestra did to him when he was her Padawan or whatever the situation is there, right? How the Jedi
Yeah.
are beginning to fall, like more context there, which I think they would probably go for anyway, because that's where we're from the High Republic to the prequels. That's where we're going, the downfall of the Jedi and why they become not so great like they are in the prequels. So more backstory for Camille between Vernestra and Plagueis, how, you know, and the time frame there, because he alludes to the fact that he's very old, but also like a love story, and then eventually a redemption and fighting against Plagueis and the Plagueis's adoption of a new apprentice somewhere down the line.
That'd
That's
be
kind
so
of
awesome.
broad strokes, I think, what I would love to see. And maybe then towards the end, the healing of some lightsaber crystals.
That'd be cool.
Something that we saw really our first like bleed in live action. And if we
Hmm.
saw like a healing the crystal in live action, that would be a really dope like book end to the whole thing,
Yeah.
and could also set up another epic lightsaber battle, which we had a ton of in the Acolyte. They were so good.
It's really good.
And yeah, I think like I'm in a very redemption story Star Wars mode.
Yeah.
Um Thanks to the Bad Batch. But that is really what I would love to see. And the characters were so great, and I really really connected with their motivations. I know there was like a lot of talk about some of the characters like flip-flopping, and I never saw that really. I mean, I really connected with their motivations, and I could see the reasons why they were doing things. So expressing that more throughout a series too, and really capturing that like emotional storytelling and character development along with maybe some of the also the action elements, I think would be great.
Yeah. Sign me up. You know, if there's a list for it, I'm gonna put my name on it because I would love to see it. I yeah, I think it would be very possible for us to go on and let's see Chimere get for like let's see what his relationship with Plagueis is.
Yeah.
If it's toxic, if it's we know how Palpatine was to Maul, to
Right.
Dooku, to Vader. It's a really shitty dude, but let's see why he's that way. Is it because of Plagueis during
Right.
his time? We can maybe see that with Chimere.
Yeah. And we don't even know if Plagueis is his teacher or if Plagueis is just watching him,
Or yeah,
or
that's
if
another good
Plagueis
thing.
was his teacher. There's so much mystery with I loved the mystery aspects of this show, and that it kept like dropping new mysteries. It would answer some questions and then be like, just kidding, there's more questions and they're bigger. I think like we also need to obviously we would also need to know more about the witches and
Yeah.
Osha's abilities, right? When Kamir goes to take the helmet off of her and he gets like trapped in that weird other
Dude, I
world.
actually forgot about that.
Yeah, that the kid was put in when they first meet the witches. Um I can't remember any characters' names right now off the top of my head, but there's so much more to explore. That's my point. Like, it would be so amazing to get a season 2 and explore both like Osha's history and her connection to magic slash the Force,
Mhm.
Kamir's history and his connection to the Force, and his connection to Plagueis or whoever else kind of like helped get him to where he is. Uh, it's just such a rich vein of Star Wars storytelling that it could really go anywhere, and that's so incredible.
Yeah. Shit. Have you It's also weird to think back too. Chimere pushed like 10 Jedi back with like one force push.
He's
Um this guy is like the Shaquille O'Neal of the NBA. He's a dominant force, and we get that.
Yeah,
Um one
he's the most powerful Force user we have probably ever seen on screen. There is a High Republic book where there's a bunch of Jedi fighting a threat, and there's a non-Jedi character there, and she was like, "Can't you just fly up there to one of the Jedi?" And it's an older Jedi, a very, you know, wise, older, well practiced Jedi. And he's basically like, no, we would have to use too much concentration to be able to do that. And then the other character's like, so what you're saying is when you would need to do it, you're unable to do it. And he's like, yes.
Mm,
So that sets in canon that it is almost impossible for a Jedi to fly because they would
wow.
have to concentrate so much. And we see Kamir like, I don't think that's like an accident that that happened in this show. Like, this dude is powerful. Yes, he's wearing that helmet, the sensory deprivation helmet, but he's extremely powerful. So he's the most powerful. He's a Sith in every way of being cool, calculated. He's got a plan. He knows where and when and how to attack the Jedi to win. Jedi have not fought a threat in 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So they don't know how to fight a Sith. And he picks a forest. So there's like stuff in the way. There's things obscuring the battlefield. He's just so smart. He was such a smart character and so powerful. I'm getting all animated now. I would love to see more. He's one of my favorite Star Wars villains. Just I love an overpowered villain, and B, he
Yeah.
was just a Sith in every single way.
Yeah. And to add on to his strength, when you see the part of him throwing the lightsaber and it cuts the trees, it's cut at that downward angle to where they would fall down. But if
Mm.
you watch it, they fall up and over. So I
So
mean,
he's like pushing things. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so crazy, and it's man, and then one thing I have in my notes I want to talk about, which is just such a dumb cop out to me, is people who say, the lightsaber, the crystal bleeding, that's one of the coolest things. And like, that's also a risk take. Like,
Mhm.
how awesome and how well executed was that? But what I'm getting to is people saying, why didn't Anakin do that on Mustafar? Well, there's a huge reason that the crystal is not exposed. That's the
Yeah.
whole reason. And she accidentally did it. It was an accident. All that hate, and it literally zooms in. We get a full widescreen shot of her holding the lightsaber. The crystal is touching her skin,
Hmm.
and she's so pissed off, and all that hatred goes to the crystal. Hence, why she's even like, "Hell," when the blaze ignited.
Yeah.
It's awesome, awesome stuff. But
Yeah.
it's so night and day. That's why it didn't happen for Anakin.
There's
It's like,
so yeah. I think there's so many reasons we can concoct as Star Wars fans with like extra level of canon knowledge. Like, first of all, it didn't happen that way for Anakin because it wasn't supposed to happen that way for Anakin. It's you can
right,
either say A, the writers didn't write it that way, or B, the Force didn't want it to work that way. And the Force had a plan for Anakin. He's the chosen one. This is the way things had to go. But also, when we do see Anakin bleed his Kyber crystal in comics, it's incredible.
yes,
It's amazing. And so, like, yeah, I'm happy to have waited for the comics, and it happened at a very specific time in the story. And yeah, he wasn't touching it. And yeah, OSHA just went through all of this stuff, like so did Anakin, but there's so much more happening here than just why could she do it and why didn't Anakin do it? Like,
yeah. It's such a
there's
weird,
just so
weird
much
thing.
more to it than that. That's such a, like, surface level way of looking at it, and the whole time people were comparing the twins to Anakin and how the twins made Anakin less special, and I don't even wanna get into we were doing really good with vibing on positive stuff. I don't even wanna get into the negative stuff because I think, again, there's just reasons for it all, up to and including that's not the way the story was written. These people
Right.
wrote this story a certain way, and they deserve respect for writing the story. And they're also huge Star Wars fans with the privilege and the, ability to write these stories. So that's the story they wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take away just because it happens to one character one way and another character another way, it doesn't take away from one or the other. They're their own individual stories, and I think they're both good stories. And just because the twins were created in the Force does not mean that Anakin's any less special.
Nah.
He was still like his story's told. He was the chosen one. He's special. He's the most special. There's nothing's ever going to take that away. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
And
Those are the stuff. Those are the things. Like, even now, sorry,
no,
even
good.
now, several months out, I'm still like, when we talking about this with you, I'm still getting excited about how good that show was. And the lightsaber was cool. His lightsaber with the little twisty mini one on the end. It was just
Ah,
all
yes. The
really cool.
gauntlet. I really love that the gauntlet sleeve. That
Yeah.
shit, man. And the helmet. I'm a
The
huge
helmet.
horror guy. It's
Yeah.
so scary.
And
Imagine
that's
that
another
coming at you in the forest. Yeah, goodbye.
that right, exactly. And that's another such a smart aspect of Kamir's character. Like, he built this helmet, or somebody built this helmet to be that, to be scary, to the Jedi's greatest weakness is fear. He created this entire thing to be scary to them. He's got the red lightsaber, he's got the helmet, he can get in your mind, and
Yeah.
he shows up and kills all of your friends, right? And the most brutal, like, deaths in the show as well. So yeah, I don't know. Quality
Quality,
Star
man.
Wars, if you ask me.
I mean, Acolyte season 2 isn't a thing, but that doesn't mean that Chimere doesn't get his own show or something. I feel like Manny Jacinto is just a little too involved and passionate about that character to where it's not a possibility. I don't think it's shut down completely, but
No.
we could still see Chimere.
I would be I mean, that's another thing. This show opens it, like, it is such a rich vein that I also think it opens up a lot of other, like, multimedia, which is what Disney is shooting for with Star Wars. It's what kicked off it's what the High Republic originally kicked off, this multimedia, you know, uh broad scape of Star Wars. and we like books, comics, it's endless what we could get from this show. And shortly after they announced not renewing it for season 2, they were at some con, like the actors were at some con somewhere, and somebody asked Manny like what's a role he would love to do before he dies, and he said, Acolyte season 2. So
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if we don't get something eventually. Like all of this stuff, like we said, the prequels, everyone hated them. Everyone loves them now. And we're getting more Star Wars. Eventually, this stuff kind of like soothes over, or the people who liked it become the loudest voices.
Yep.
So it'll just be a matter of time, I think. But
I
I
agree.
would love more, and I also, I'm happy with headcanon. I'm happy with fan fiction. I think it's all like I think everything's fan fiction. So there's no like negative connotation there for me, but there's always there's just there's always good stuff to turn to. I just wish I just really hope it comes back, and I'm really sad that it got such a negative reaction and that it so negatively impacted Leslie Headland and the
Yeah.
cast of the show. Like it's
That's the
heartbreaking to hear their stories about it, but
Yeah, that ultimately is the bigger picture on the outside. It's one thing. It really sucks when you like something, but like a majority of others don't. Like it's just kind of
mhm.
like, oh, because it makes you think. But I mean, if you're very genuine in your feeling, some people do sway different ways. If they see someone they like doesn't like something, then they're
Mhm.
more than likely going to go that route. But yeah, it sucks when you like something and others don't. But I mean, they got paid to do a job and they did it great, nonetheless. But at the same time, they're humans, man. They have feelings.
Yeah,
It's
they don't
and
deserve
it's for
they don't
entertainment.
deserve the hate that they got. And it's one thing to like not like a thing, that's fine. We talked a lot here today about like we're going to like a thing or we might not like a thing, but it's always going to be somebody's thing, but like the type of hate that Leslie Headland and the cast got for this show is just beyond any of that, right? It's so
Yeah,
much more beyond, well, I like this Star Wars or I don't like this Star Wars. It was very targeted and bigoted, and there was just so much of that type of hate thrown
yeah,
at these people. It's not, I don't even want to say for no reason. There's never a reason for it. It just should not have happened. So I would, that's another thing. Like I would love to see a season 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of them or all of them were like, no. Why
yeah.
would I put myself in that position again? Like Amandla, I I I remember the Instagram story that she posted once they announced that they weren't going to renew it, and just
Oh yeah,
what she said about like the way that they were treated, the people who were reaching out to her, the messages that she was getting, like all of the tremendous amount of, bigoted hate that was directed towards her and the rest of the group. So it's heartbreaking that nowhere is, I mean, it's prevalent now. I mean, it's prevalent everywhere. And it's heartbreaking that Star Wars is not safe from that. So I wouldn't be surprised if like Amandla was like, no, I'm obviously not coming back to do that,
yeah,
which would be very sad, but understandable. Why would you put yourself in
yeah,
danger
yeah,
um, again?
yeah,
So yeah, I just just love Star Wars, everybody. And if you don't love a particular thing, that's okay. Someone else does, and just let them.
yeah.
And that's really all there is.
Yep. It's the greatest way to put it. But yeah, guys, that was episode 10 of Clan Brandolorian already. We have done future episodes in the past. I think we got up to like 20, but this is the official channel podcast. So yeah,
Oh, we're on
episode
the
10
official
already.
channel. Wait,
Yeah,
I have a question for you.
swing it.
Is there anything particular you would like to see in season 2 of The Acolyte if we ever get it?
Yes, give me Plagueis training Chimere. I want backstory of Chimere. what the issue is. I want to know why he has the scars on his back,
Mhm.
which, kind of makes sense. Um, I want to see now this is hopeful thinking. I would love to see Chimere get replaced by Palpatine. That way
Mm.
we can see what was right before Palpatine and why Palpatine is who Palpatine is. Um, I think that would be a really good setup. More Manny Jacinto. I want to see
Mhm.
him in his helmet. I want to see him with his gauntlet, his cool lightsaber with the Shoto lightsaber. Um, I like I say, my main thing with Star Wars is I want a good story with cool shit. That's all I ask
Yep.
for. And
Yep.
I think that's what season 2 could be.
Dope. It would also be cool as a little added thing. I think you just made me think of this. Um, the timing might not work for it to be Palpatine in there, but it would be cool to see that Plagueis knows that
Like who's next?
Palpatine will happen, and the political workings that have to go on to get Palpatine in place and be like this politician on Naboo, and then leading into some content, show, whatever, about like Palpatine's political rise on Naboo while being trained by Plagueis. That is something that I would love to see. Like our next like political thriller and or level political thriller, but with weird mystical Star Wars happening in the background with like Plagueis raising Palpatine and training Palpatine while being like molded as this politician. Very, you said you like horror, very like The Omen, like this
Oh yeah,
prophecy of like the kid growing up and being a politician. Yeah, I want
that could be
that.
sick. Give it to us, Disney, please. You have
Yeah,
a chance.
please.
But you heard it here first. Just
Yeah.
always remember that. But to end it off, tell us about what you do at Krypton to Alderaan and what's the future of the channel.
Yeah, well, I feel like Krypton to Alderaan is a lot like what we did here tonight. My co-host Royce, some of you might know him as Royish Good Looks. Check out his, Star Wars music on YouTube. We like to say we talk about nerdy pop culture, but it's mostly Star Wars. It's pretty much all Star Wars at this point. And we just give generous takes on Star Wars. We review a lot of stuff, but it's always with a generous lens of, like I've said here a lot, it might not be for us, but it's for somebody. And here's what we liked, and here's what we didn't, and here's why, because of what makes Star Wars special to us. So you can find us. We're mostly on YouTube, but you can find us anywhere. Podcasts, it's Krypton to Alderaan, and give us a follow on Instagram. And I think that's all the future of our channel. We're trying to figure out what to do in this lull, but we'll definitely be covering Andor season 2 every week when it starts to come out.
Yeah. And that is just around the corner, guys. April is almost here, actually.
Very close.
But yeah, thank you for joining, guys. Make sure you go down below, subscribe. Everything of Krypton to Alderaan and Claim Brandolorian will be down in the description. So make sure you go to Instagram, follow them, Krypton to Alderaan, subscribe as well, and subscribe down below to Claim Brandolorian. That way you guys don't miss any more cool episodes. So until the
Yeah.
next time, thank you, Joey. Have a
Thank
good
you.
rest of your night, and we will see you guys next time.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.